I wonder if you could tell us a bit about your inspiration for this piece and what you drew on.
Firstly, I spent quite a lot of time looking for music because I whilst music's not necessarily the first starting point for me, it's definitely figures quite strongly within the process, so I need to have quite a strong connection to the music that I'm working with. So when I found this particular piece of music, which is called Cube, it's an ensemble percussion score, I was reading into the influences around the score, and it's a performance piece for I think 4 percussionists, and it's for a festival performance piece, so it's being performed at Edinburgh Festival, Melbourne Festival, around the year 2001 I think it was made. So what's interesting about this score is that it's designed and created for an outdoor site-specific performance environment. So they have structural scaffolding structures that the percussionists perform in, and the piece of music is called Cube. And what I found interesting about this concept of Cube is that it enhanced the percussionist performances by being in a structure with various instruments that are ever increasing, apparently, depending on the performance space and numbers of musicians. And it added to the choreographic element and the performance element of their performances. And I found this really interesting because when I flipped it back to how that would affect me, or as a dancer, or as a choreographer, I thought of those parameters and how it would almost be in opposition to us. So it would restrict us, it would inform us, and instead of not necessarily not enhancing the performance, but it would provide limitations. Mm-hmm. So from this perspective, I started thinking, and it got me thinking very much about the greater ramifications of that concept and what those things mean in a social context as well. So the idea of restriction, being placed in boxes, the idea of stereotype, things like that started to sort of bubble away for a starting point at least to start creating from.
And did you then take the cube as a spatial form to work with?
Yes, very much. I narrowed down 3 or 4 sort of key points in which I wanted to explore, and the spatial cube element was very much figured quite strongly. And I think also as a starting point to develop vocabulary with dancers that I'd never worked with before. I think it was quite a strict parameter to try and engage with them and to develop a vocabulary that was going to be right for the basis of the work before we moved into anything that was a little bit more, say, conceptual or emotional or human. I started from a very physical base, purely physical base.
So what was your working process like? Because as you said, you hadn't met the company before you came in. How did you work with transitions?
Well, I had 5 weeks on all total process time, which was quite generous. First of all, I started just a little bit of a getting to know you session, really, more than anything. I'm starting to use improvisation as a method, so I wanted to explore. Each process I do, I want to explore more new ways, new avenues of generating material. So it was a nice way to start with improv around ideas, developing a vocabulary that was going to be personal to this work and to them. And also to create the realms of possibility in terms of what kind of dance this would be. So beyond the improvisation, we moved into tasks, set tasks. I tasked myself in making material for the dancers. They tasked themselves to find the root material in which we would develop and deconstruct and make into duets and all that, further and further. So.
And what drew you to Transitions as a group to work with?
Well, Transitions has got, like a wonderful reputation as being, in love as a wonderful institution. Also, my background is quite formal. Mm-hmm. I come from a classical ballet background originally, and then have moved into contemporary dance later in my career. I was interested in Transitions because of the nature of the the dancers, the approach that they would have to work, the information that they can give me, the education that I can get by working with dancers that have come from a different background to me, that have a different perspective on dance.
And how's the experience been working with them?
It's been wonderful. Yeah, I've really, really enjoyed it. It's been hard work, but I've found that they're an incredibly eager bunch. They are very creative, and there was one point within the process, maybe 2 weeks in, there was a huge shift. It was all of a sudden I walked in the room and they were dancing differently. They were inhabiting the space differently. It was like something clicked. We'd found our kind of our way of working, which was really lovely to see. So from then on, there was sort of growth every day, and I was sort of seeing something new in each dancer, and it was really lovely. You build a relationship in a creative time, I think, and you really get to see an element of who people are, and especially at their age, they're still, they're young. They've had a certain level of experience. They've all had a training. They're ready and fresh for their careers, so they're hungry, and it's so lovely to be able to work with people on that level. They're not jaded in any way. They're not cynical. They're not, there's no sort of pretense.
So in terms of lighting and costume and things like that, how has the work kind of informed that, and what choices have you made?
Well, to be honest, the creative process is one of evolution. I have had quite strong starting points, which have informed me quite strongly throughout the process in terms of the decisions I've made. However, ultimately it's a dance work. It's a pure dance work that has underlying messages and underlying sort of quite, how do I say it, suggestive ideas, but without being too upfront and on the table and say, well, this is what this work's about. I'm interested in dance being a form of expression and a form of physical expression. I think movement can say so much without any layering on top of anything else, be it narrative or theatrics or anything like that. So whilst conceptually it's very much a work in progress for me as well as a creator, and design-wise, I think the design will give the parameters of the work. I have, whilst structurally and vocabulary-wise, the structure is most definitely there, and the messages are most definitely there. I think once you put it into context of a theatrical environment with the set design and lighting, it's just going to enhance and I'm going to be able to bring out those key things that say the most.